Motel Rendezvous by Mike Grimes. Copyright 2010. So are you visiting? The woman asked, wisps of mahogany hair blowing in the summer breeze, or just passing through? I'm sorry, the young man replied. Most people that come to this town and stay at this motel are usually either visiting someone or just passing through on their way to someplace else. So which are you? Oh, sorry. My mind was elsewhere for a moment. A little of both, actually, visiting as I passed through. I see. He continued fighting a soda machine for a bottle of Mountain Dew. He did not seem all that interested in her, so she turned to walk away. What about you? He asked suddenly. She turned to look at him again. With a final bump of his fist, the machine finally relinquished its treasure. He opened it, took a sip. Ah, that's more like it. Nothing like a cold soda on a warm summer evening. You want a sip? He said, holding out the green plastic bottle for her to take. No, I'm fine, thanks. She liked his eyes. They were a remarkable green color, and she was easily lost in them. He was cute, too. Perhaps younger than she was. Probably too young, knowing her luck. He did not look a day over 17. He stared at her intently. It made her feel uneasy in that strange, erotic way. He smiled, then dropped his eyes for a moment. So which are you? He asked again. Excuse me? Are you passing through or visiting? Oh, she shrugged. Some of both. So are you here with your parents? She laughed out loud. Ha, that's a good one. Why? He asked, smiling. You don't look a day over 16. She beamed at him and blushed, brushed her hair off her shoulder. Thank you for the compliment, but I'm here alone. Unfinished business, and I'm 27. She fidgeted a bit, then said, Are you? I'm 19, he said. She smiled again. Whew, for a moment there I thought I might go to jail for talking to you. He chuckled, then sipped his soda and sat on the wooden railing nearby. I'm here alone, too. No parents? Girlfriend? Nope, neither. Just here on my motorcycle. Motorcycle? Yeah. He pointed toward the parking lot to a black sport bike a few yards away. It was exotic and looked like a bullet on two wheels. Wow, it looks, dangerous. Pretty, but not if you know how to ride, he said, or hold on to the driver real tight. His comment made her blush. I've been riding since I was 7 years old, so I'm not worried. That's incredible. Yeah, he said, staring into her eyes. So where do you hail from? Chicago, you? Miami, Atlanta, San Diego. She said, You really get around, huh? You could say that, he said blandly. So is your time here business or pleasure? She said, putting just enough emphasis on the last word. Depends on how you look at it, really. Is it finished? Almost, he said. Why, did you have something in mind for afterward? She leaned on the railing beside him. Probably. I just like where this is going. I have this feeling in my gut. I know this nice casual restaurant that serves the best wings in the state. Are you busy tonight? No, but my mother always told me not to talk to strange women, he said mockingly. She was quick with a flirty comeback, and my mother told me not to ask out guys who ride on motorcycles. They both laughed. He turned to face her, leaned on the railing on his elbow. She started to say. You know what you like, and you don't want to be alone tonight? Yes, she admitted. He grinned at her, then stole a glance down at her thick tan legs beneath her white shorts. She was wearing white sandals and her nails were painted a deep red-brown. When he looked up at her face again, she was biting her lip. My name's Maddy, she blurted out. She held out her hand and he shook it politely. Robert. Nice to meet you, Robert. Likewise. Robert stood up from the railing, turned, and leaned over it, resting on his forearms. Maddy did the same. She stretched out her finger and caressed his elbow with its tip. She looked at her hand. He looked down at her hand, touched it with his own. Wings, huh? Yep, she said. All kinds. 6:30 okay? That's fine, she said. Okay. Maddy smiled as he offered her the bottle of soda again. This time she slipped it from his hand and took a long swallow, then handed it back to him. I'm in 6, she said. Room 6. 3. See you at 6:30 then, Robert. Okay, with bells on, he said with a wink. Bye, she said, turning to leave. At 6:25, Maddy heard a knock on the door. She checked through the peephole, even though she already knew who it was. She was smiling brightly when he opened the door. Robert seemed astonished by the way she looked, and how her raspberry perfume likely greeted him in the breeze. Her brown hair was pulled up into a ponytail, and she had switched her outfit to a black tank top and denim skirt. He hugged her with one arm and gave her a quick peck on the cheek. Hello, he said sweetly. Hi, Maddy replied, anxious. You smell nice. So do you, he said. He released her and looked her over. He let out a breath. Wow, you look fantastic. Thanks. Wow, look at you, she exclaimed. He was wearing a pair of jeans and a black short-sleeved shirt unbuttoned at the top. She couldn't help but notice the armload of food he was carrying. Let me help you. What's all this? Pizza, low-calorie chips, sodas. Thought we could sit by the pool and have a picnic. I saved us some time, I think. Maddy considered his innuendo. That sounds nice. Let me get my shoes. Robert and Maddy ate their meal under the big oak tree near the crystalline swimming pool. The smell of pizza easily overtook the odor of chlorine. They chatted in between bites and truly got to know each other. She liked him, and he apparently liked her too, despite their age difference. They had a lot in common, and he was very mature for his age. So, he started, when do you leave town? Tomorrow, she said, in the morning. Her smile faded then. Robert touched her cheek. Do you have to? She perked up a little. What do you have in mind? I'm just wondering what there is to go back to. House? A man? Maddy laughed. Nothing that exciting, I'm afraid. Just an apartment and a cat. I've only been here a day or two. Aside from my aunt, I don't really have a reason to stay here, now that she's gone. What about me? Robert asked. Maddy smiled at him. What about you? Would you stay here for me? Maybe, she said, considering. She shrugged. But you're not from around here either. Nope. Where do you call home? I mean, I know you travel, but is there someplace you prefer? He paused. I don't know. I think I'd like to move up north, where it snows a lot, maybe Montana or Oregon. Someplace in the mountains, or Colorado. Build a cabin, adopt a wolf, raise a family, live off the land. Wow, that sounds... What's the word I'm looking for? Exciting, he said. Inspirational, she declared. She looked at him and he stared at her with the corners of his mouth turned upward. I'm a beach and sun person myself, but what you described, wow. I never would have guessed you felt that way. Maybe I'd take you with me, he said, if I didn't already decide to kill you. Maddy felt a shiver run through her body. She was not even sure she had heard him correctly. What did you say? You heard me. Don't insult me by making me repeat it. She glanced all around them, as casually as she could. They were alone. No one was at the motel but them. No one was driving past on the 4-lane highway 50 yards or so behind them. She wondered if she could run. If she could run, could she get away? She felt so weak suddenly, and did not think she could even stand, let alone run. Was he serious? No, he couldn't be. What was she so afraid of? She decided to stand and call his bluff. As she rose to her feet, she stretched, brushed leaves and grass from her backside. Well, she said nervously, I could use a swim, Bobby. What about you? She turned to walk away and casually felt her pocket for her keys. They were not there. Shit, she thought to herself. She had left them in her room and had only brought her room key with her when she came outside for their picnic. It was a credit card type thing with a magnetic stripe on the back of it. It was in her back pocket. She reached for it gingerly as she arrived at her door, the door to her room. Suddenly she heard a sound, like a rock hitting a piece of steel, and realized a smoking bullet hole had appeared in the door beside her. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh God. She tried frantically to shove the keycard into the slot above the door handle. She missed twice. Come on, please. The card slipped into the slot suddenly, and Matty heard a beep that let her know the heavy door had been unlocked. She flung it open and threw herself inside as hastily as she could. Miraculously, no further gunshots were fired behind her. Maybe she had imagined it. Maybe Robert was still there by the pool. Not trying to kill her, wondering why she was acting so insane. But that thought was short-lived as he kicked in her door and came into the room with her. He had the gun at his side. Maddy could not tell what kind of gun it was, but it had a silencer screwed at the end of its barrel. She whined and crawled up onto the bed, messing up the blankets and sheets. She tumbled over the side of it onto the floor, seeking cover. Get up, Robert ordered, as she hesitated. Now, he screamed at her. Maddy obeyed, meekly crying and whimpering like a beaten puppy. Tears and sweat streaked down her face and neck. Sit on the bed over here in front of me, he said more gently. She did as she was instructed, fighting desperately to cope with the sudden, hostile situation she found herself, for reasons completely unknown to her. He smiled at her, which seemed out of context for the event. Look at you, he said. You really don't know. You really don't remember, do you? The expression on her wet face must have confirmed his suspicions. 2 years ago, he started. A country road not far from here. There was an accident, wasn't there? Yes, I remember. One car went over the line, he said, and the driver of the other car was killed. Do you recall it? Yes, but I... Shh, he whispered, lifting his finger to his lips. He kneeled at her feet, looking up into her eyes. See, the driver of that car was a man I spent a long time getting to know. And now, because of you, he's gone. No, she yelped. I had nothing to do with it. I remember, he said. You weren't driving, and they found you completely not at fault, right? She nodded. Yes. But you were at fault, weren't you, Matty? He's gone. Dead. Because of you. Because of me, she repeated numbly. Because of me. Matty removed the virtual reality headset and simply dropped it on the floor at her bare feet. She was a mess, and so was her bedroom. The fantasy she had just experienced was supposed to be a pleasant, beautiful reenactment of the day she had met her last boyfriend, Robert. A simple simulation that would help her reminisce and cope, help her finally process the relationship's tragic end. But the computer had learned how to provoke her and trigger the exact emotions that would turn her fantasy into a horrible nightmare. Because of me, she mumbled again, and pressed the pistol to the side of her head. The next morning, police were at her apartment building where Maddy had been staying. The door to her room was open, kicked in off its frame. They were taking photos, piecing together what had happened. After a while, they found that she was the owner of the motel across the street, where only a shiny black motorcycle sat collecting dust in the lot. It was registered in her name. Maddy was sprawled out across her bed with a bullet wound in her temple and a gun with a silencer in her right hand. An expensive-looking computer was on the desk near the bed. There was no evidence of foul play. One of the officers picked up the VR headset and studied it curiously. What the hell? He said to no one in particular. Another officer handed him the note. It was signed by Madeline Baker. I first met my boyfriend Robert at the motel across the street 5 years ago. 3 years later, there was an accident in Buckingham. My friend was at a party and I was too high and drunk to drive home. I told her I was too tired to help her and to find someone else. She drove herself home, totally incapable of driving. On the way home, her car went over the center line and caused a head-on collision with another car. The other was driven by my boyfriend, Robert Marshall. He was on his way to see me. He and my friend were killed on impact. Bobby's only crime was that he just happened to be at the same spot in the road when my friend's car drifted. If I hadn't been selfish and given my friend a ride home that night, they'd both still be alive, and I would be guilt-free. The accident would never have happened. I know that now.